Imagine a neighborhood where the once thriving middle-class families are slowly vanishing, their homes replaced by either sprawling luxury estates or cramped rental units. What happened to the America where a steady job could buy a house, send kids to college, and even support a modest retirement? The middle class, long seen as the backbone of the nation's economy and community, feels like a fading chapter in the story of modern life. This is Insight Archive, where we explore the systems shaping modern life. The middle class in the United States, traditionally defined by steady employment, home ownership, and a reasonable sense of economic security, has always represented more than just income brackets. It's been a symbol of stability, opportunity, and the promise of progress through hard work. But over the last several decades, this segment of society has been shrinking at an alarming rate. To understand why the middle class is slowly disappearing, we need to look at a complex mix of economic, social, and political shifts that have quietly but radically altered the American dream. At the heart of this transformation is the changing landscape of work. For much of the 20th century, manufacturing jobs and unionized labor provided solid, middle-income employment to millions of Americans. Cities like Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland thrived because of factories that paid good wages, offered benefits, and created a path to upward mobility without the need for an advanced college degree. But starting in the late 1970s and accelerating through the 1980s and 1990s, globalization and technological advancements began to dismantle this world. Factories closed or moved overseas, with jobs that once supported entire families disappearing or being replaced by positions that paid significantly less. At the same time, the service sector grew, but it often failed to offer comparable wages or security. Jobs in retail, food service, or call centers became more common, but many of these roles were part-time, lacked benefits, and provided little room for advancement. The erosion of union power also left many workers without the collective bargaining strength that had once secured better pay and conditions. As a result, even people working full-time found it difficult to maintain the living standards that their parents might have taken for granted. Adding another layer to this shift is the rising cost of living, which has steadily outpaced wage growth for decades. Housing, education, healthcare, these three pillars of middle-class life have become increasingly expensive, forcing families to stretch their incomes thinner than ever before. Consider housing. Home prices have soared, especially in desirable urban and suburban areas, creating a barrier to entry that many middle-class families simply cannot overcome. The dream of buying a home, a key element of wealth building for generations, has slipped out of reach for many. Simultaneously, higher education, once a stepping stone to a stable middle-class job, has become a financial burden. Student loan debt in the U.S. has ballooned to over $1.7 trillion, and for many, the cost of college eclipses the potential earnings boost it might bring. The pressure to secure a degree can trap younger generations in debt, making it harder to save, buy a home, or start a family. This cycle limits economic mobility and deepens economic insecurity. Healthcare is another tremendous strain. Despite being one of the wealthiest nations on Earth, the U.S. does not guarantee affordable healthcare for all its citizens. Medical bills remain one of the leading causes of personal bankruptcy. When a single illness or injury threatens financial stability, it undermines the very foundation of middle-class security. Paying premiums, co-pays, and out-of-pocket expenses can consume a significant portion of a household's income, leaving less for everything else. But the story isn't just about economics and costs. It's also about how policies and societal changes have influenced who benefits from growth and who gets left behind. Tax policies over the past few decades have often favored the wealthy and corporations, allowing capital to accumulate disproportionately at the top. While these policies were sometimes justified as encouraging investment and economic expansion, the fruits of growth have not been shared evenly. Wage stagnation for middle and lower-income workers coincided with soaring incomes for the wealthiest Americans, deepening inequality and eroding the middle-class cushion. Political gridlock and a lack of investment in infrastructure, education, and social safety nets have weakened the supports that once helped maintain a strong middle class. Programs that expanded access to healthcare, affordable housing, and childcare have seen cuts or stagnation. Without these, families must shoulder more of the burden alone, perpetuating cycles of financial instability and limiting opportunities. Cultural shifts also factor into the picture. The pressures on middle-class families are not just financial, but psychological and social. The relentless pace of modern life, coupled with economic uncertainty, has altered family dynamics, community cohesion, and personal well-being. Many middle-class individuals find themselves working longer hours or juggling multiple jobs, leaving less time for family or community involvement. This, in turn, affects social capital, the networks and relationships that often provide informal support during times of hardship. Then there's the housing market itself transforming in ways that undermine middle-class existence. Gentrification in cities pushes longtime residents out, often into less expensive areas lacking in jobs and services. At the same time, investment firms and wealthy individuals have increasingly purchased residential real estate, treating homes more like assets and less like places to build community. This investment-driven demand inflates prices and rents, making it harder for middle-class families to afford a stable place to live. Technology also plays an ambiguous role. Automation and artificial intelligence threaten to replace many jobs in transportation, manufacturing, and even the service sector. While new industries and jobs emerge, they often require advanced skills or offer gig economy-style employment without stability. In many ways, technology accelerates the polarization of jobs, amplifying the gap between high-skilled, high-paid roles and low-skilled, low-paid ones, leaving the middle squeezed from both ends. Despite all these challenges, the middle class is not entirely disappearing everywhere. It is shrinking and evolving. Some communities and industries still provide solid middle-class opportunities. However, the overall trend reflects a fracturing of the classic middle-class experience. More households find themselves either struggling to stay afloat or moving toward greater wealth disparity. This shift carries profound implications for social cohesion, political stability, and economic growth. The disappearance of the middle class is not an inevitability, but reversing the trend would require comprehensive changes. It would mean reinvesting in education, strengthening workers' rights, expanding affordable healthcare, and implementing policies that ensure fair wages and affordable housing. It also involves recognizing the importance of a middle class, not just for individual prosperity, but for the health of the entire society. When the middle class weakens, democracy itself faces stress, as economic inequality often brings political polarization and unrest. Reflecting on this, it's clear that the fate of the middle class acts as a mirror for many larger questions about fairness, opportunity, and what kind of nation America wants to be. It's about more than numbers on a chart or income brackets. It's about the daily lives of millions of people striving for security, dignity, and a better future for their families. In the quiet erosion of the middle class, we see both the challenges of our time and the paths we might choose to address them. The future depends on the decisions made today, whether society embraces policies and values that support broad-based prosperity or allows the divides to deepen. The story of the middle class is still being written, and it reminds us that economic systems are not just abstract forces, but lived experiences that shape who we are and where we're